one of the important question is that why it is why it is important to understand these SDG interactions. Why we need to understand about the synergies and trade-off. Any answer for this question? Why do we need to understand these synergies and trade-off? When we look at synergies and trade-off, the first thing is that there are 17 sustainable development goals. There are 169 targets. So what we can see is that when we look at those synergies and trade-off, we can also think about creating a network of synergies and trade-off and try to understand which are the key synergies and trade-off in this network. For example, we can look at here the A is SDG synergy network and B is SDG trade-off network. And here we can see that there are certain goal targets and each dot is SDG target. And we can see that there are certain SDG target which has more synergies with other SDGs, or the SDG targets, or in B, more trade-off with other SDG targets. So even though all the SDGs are interconnected, some SDGs are more connected in a positive sense or negative sense with others. So we have to understand these key SDGs which has positive or negative interconnections, with many SDGs, because we can focus our limited resources on these SDG targets, either to leverage synergies or to tackle trade-offs. Second is that we also can use these SDGs, interactions, and then try to understand also like not only the direct SDG interactions, but also try to understand the indirect SDG interactions. For example, here, if we see that if target 1.1 and target 2.2 are interconnected, then the ultimate goal of sustainable world is also influenced indirectly by target 1.1 because of this interlinkages. So these interlinkages matters because of this interconnection, some goal or some target may have more important on the system. And we can focus those focus those targets to when we do the prioritization of SDGs. And the question is that before in the lecture, I mentioned that there is cherry picking of SDGs and there is prioritization of SDGs. What is the difference between cherry picking and prioritization? In a way, due to limited resources, decision makers need to do some prioritization. They need to pick some SDGs to focus, and the cherry picking means not to look at the system, but to cherry pick or to focus on the SDGs which they want to do in any way. But in terms of systematic prioritization means that to look at the system and to focus on synergies and trade-off, and based on this synergies and trade-off, based on this network, to focus on the key target to get an optimum benefit. And also not only looking at synergies, but also looking at trade-off, and by doing so, to select the right strategy to make a progress across all the SDGs. And this is really an interesting example of cherry picking. So what we can see here is that this is more like SDG goal prioritization by national governments. And then what we see that in many countries, SDG 1 and SDG 8 are prioritized, like no poverty and economic growth is a priority for many countries. SDG 12, which could be a bottleneck for sustainability, is not in the priority for many countries. We can see here SDG 12 is priority for very, very low number of countries. So this is what I mean by cherry picking, like making our priorities, not looking at the whole system. And this cherry picking of SDGs is there not only in low income countries. So here LMN is low middle income countries, upper middle income countries, and high middle income countries. And we can see that even in high income countries, the prioritization is SDG 1, no poverty, SDG 8, economic growth. So when we don't prioritize the SDGs based on the system, things would differ. So here, so this is not the right development. Yeah? So this is cherry picking from my point of view. Yeah, and if you look at systemic prioritization, then things may look completely different. For example, here, what we did here is that we look at, let's say, SDG direct and indirect relation, yeah. And based on this, we try to understand which are the most important SDGs in the whole system, looking at direct and indirect relation, and we can see that focusing on SDG 3, SDG 5, SDG 15, and SDG 17 matter a lot, yeah, because of its interlinkages. Making progress on SDG 3, SDG 15, SDG 17 means not only making progress on these goals and targets, it also means making progress on other SDGs, yeah, because of these interlinkages. For example, here we can see that target 5.5 matters because target 5.5 is the number of women leaders, or it's related to women in a leadership position. Yeah, so when we have more women in a leadership position, either it be in a country, in parliament, or in business as a CEO, it has a more leveraging effect on whole SDGs. This is one of my favorite example, and we see that such leveraging effect also during the COVID pandemic, like a country's government male versus country governed by female took a different, let's say, different path in terms of handling the pandemic. Yeah. So SDGs 17.6, 17.8, these are related to partnerships, South-South, North-South collaboration, and so on. It matters. Yeah? And if we focus on a partnership, build partnership among the countries, yeah, with technology transfer, knowledge transfer, it helps to foster SDGs as a whole. However, there are also some SDGs which could be a bottleneck. Yeah? For example, here 16.8 and 10.6. These SDG targets are measured by the same indicator, yeah, because there are some indicators which are used for multiple to reflect or to monitor different targets, and this 10.6 and 16.8 is monitored by a target, an indicator on voting right of developing countries in international forum. So here, what we see is that increasing the number of countries having voting right in international forum may not have a positive impact on the whole SDGs debate. Now, it's a bit counterintuitive. Now, it's a bit like opposite of what we think. Now, but one of the interpretation I got is that there might be some time lag. Yeah. But more often is that I interpret this more like paper tigers doesn't bite. Yeah? So giving only voting right in the international forum doesn't work. We need more empowerment of low-income countries or developing countries in an international forum. Empowerment is needed, technology transformation is needed, rather than only giving voting right. Yeah? Because it should be much more solid rather than let's say commitments and so on. Yeah, so that would be my interpretation here. And looking at this as systems of SDGs, we can come up with a systemic prioritization of SDGs. So we talk a lot about SDG interactions now, and now the question is like, how can one investigate SDG interactions? What are the methods available there for investigating SDG interactions? And here I would like to just to show that there are a wide range of methods available to look at SDG interactions, coming from, let's say, monitoring approaches, yeah, so looking at model-based approaches like a scenario approaches, quantitative case studies, yeah, using network analysis and also discourse analysis and so on, yeah, and these methods has own strength and limitations, yeah? And we talk about few of those quantitative and qualitative methods. So these methods has also its own limitation or strength in terms of coverage. Yeah? So if you want to know a bit more about these methods, there is a chapter in a book about these methods. You can also have a look on that. You don't need to know all this method by heart, but we'll be talking more about these methods and do some hands-on exercise